Have you ever thought about starting your own business, but were afraid of some of the fears like feeding and supporting your family, or what you're going to do if you quit your day job? Well, I'm excited today to have a guest that's gone through those steps and can ease some of our fears. So stay with us as we discuss transitioning from your day job to your own business. Darren, welcome to the show.
Hi. Hello, Mike.
Hi. Glad to have you. I'm excited to hear your story and how you went from working for somebody else for 12 years to transitioning to doing some stuff on the side at night and eventually owning your own business. So thanks for coming.
Welcome.
Yeah. So let's go back in time a little bit. So you spent 12 years in private industry as a mental health counselor. And so what brought you into that field to begin with? Let's start there.
As a counseling field in the first place? So I never have a good answer, but basically I took a psychology class in college at UVU, and it was really interesting. And then I took another one, and I just thought it was cool.
Yeah, that's like we said before, we discussed this a little bit, and we have those teachers and role models in our lives, right, that kind of make a difference, and some of them stand out more than others, and it sounds like this one stood out to you and really made an impact.
Yeah, so Norma Gould was the teacher, and she was a therapist as well as a professor. So she would tell a lot of stories from her practice that were, real life things besides just from the book. And we all loved it. It was like story time. So that was cool. And I took her for any class I could because she was really motivated, me. And that helped me get a passion for it. So.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences where people that have been in industry, right, and then come to teach are always more interesting than those that have just been in academia the whole time.
I would agree.
Because they have those real life experiences, and you kind of get a glimpse of what you might see in the industry. And I remember one of my teachers in high school, he was a part-time mayor for a small city. Wow. So we'd spend half the lecture time just asking him questions about politics and mayor stuff.
And that's fun.
I know, it was a lot of fun. We didn't get much science done, but it was a lot of real life questions. Okay, so you moved into the private industry and counseling for 12 years. And what prompted you to think about doing this on your own or opening your own clinic?
Yeah. So the place I was actually public, but it was just a counseling center. And I was there as an employee, 12 years, learning a lot about therapy. But, it was just a position that didn't go anywhere else. You're a therapist and you stay 30 years and then you retire. And so, I wanted to advance somehow a little more than that. I honestly, you could say, I was tired of being poor. So
can be a good motivator.
Social work isn't the most biggest paying field, right? And so honestly, that was a little bit of the motivation, but I just started out saying, I'm just going to work at both. I'm going to work in the day there, and I'm going to do this in the evening, a night or two, and just start a private practice, my own thing, and try to see how that works.
So take me through the steps of that. Did you just rent out a room somewhere in a commercial building, or what did you do?
Yeah. So the town I'm from, there's not a lot of office space, and I wanted to do it from my own city. So I looked, there was nothing. There was a handful of offices, and they were all full. So every once in a while, I would look again every few months, and one day I went in and asked this guy, I said, hey, do you have any hours you're not using it I could just sublease? And he's all, no, but come with me. I'm like, okay. We walk down the hall. He goes, someone over here has a little room. And he took me in, And she was there and said, "Hey, this is Darren. He's looking for space. I thought you might have one." And she goes, "Yeah, we just use it for a closet." And they took me in, and I'm just like, this would be awesome. This little therapy room, and they didn't even use it. So she said, you can go ahead and use that, and we'll just charge you like by the hour that you're in there. Awesome. $10 an hour.
No way.
I'm like, is this really happening? I'll take it. So that was a dream, and so I didn't even have to pay when I wasn't in there.
I love it.
So I could be there one night and just pay a little bit.
Oh man, couldn't have gotten a better deal, right?
No.
So. Well, nice. I love that story, because if you hadn't had asked that person, right, you never would have gotten the connection to the lady that had the room, right? So, yeah. And that's a story that I've found in my life has happened a lot. Like, you have to ask, and when you ask, doors come open.
Right.
And if they don't, you just ask somebody else, and then it opens eventually.
I think that's a key with our topic today, right? I think it's a key to starting a business or something is to be positive and to keep trying, and doors slam, but keep going. It's not easy, so that is a key. Yeah, keep positive.
Don't go into it, and I think most people realize that going into business that it's not easy, and that's why they don't make that transition, because they have a lot of these fears. And so let's talk about those. So, when you started getting clients, I'm assuming you had to go through the marketing and all that stuff. So talk a little bit about that. How did you get clients? And you probably couldn't take them from your day job, right?
No,
conflict of interest.
There's a conflict. So I didn't know how to do that. I knew how to do therapy, but I didn't know how to do business or marketing. Sure. So I had a friend who was a therapist who was doing it on the side. So I called him up. I wrote down everything he said, and I did everything he said. And he told me a little bit about marketing and a little bit about, billing and insurance and like a lot. So that helped. But essentially, I was open for any kind of client. So I got on insurance companies that didn't pay very much, but that they were easy to get on, or they'd have lots of referrals. And I did like EAPs, so
employee assistance programs.
Okay. Yeah, so they
with companies in the area.
There's just certain EAPs, and you never know where they're coming from. But it didn't pay very much, but it worked. That was my marketing.
I mean, obviously it worked, and I think that's a key for a lot of businesses is getting people in the door, and then once they're in the door, you get those referrals to word of mouth type things.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, I like it. So you got the referrals and the clientele, and were you just getting overwhelmed with too many appointments? What happened next?
Eventually, right? So at first, I was doing one night a week, 4 sessions. And that worked. Then I would get another call here or there, and more clients. So I said, I'll open up Tuesdays. And then I was doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights for like 5 hours a night. And that was just after working all day. And so it was getting to be tiring. So yeah, I was getting too much to do both.
Gotcha. So where was the transition point for you? When did you decide, okay, I'm going to take this leap of faith. I know this is working, and hopefully it'll scale bigger where I can actually support my family. But where was that tipping point at for you, and how did you make that decision?
I think I'm just kind of thinking on that. So I was full in the evenings, but I also had someone call me. A therapist, and he said, I'm working on licensure. I need supervision. Would you be willing to let me come work with you, and you could do my supervision, and I could I know a little about marketing, and I could help with that. And I was like, oh, I don't know, like an employee, I don't even know what that means.
Right. That's a whole nother can of worms to open.
Yes, it's a whole nother. And so I didn't want to do that. It just sounded scary and strange, and so I thought about it, and I met with him. He kind of convinced me even more. And I said, okay, well, what do I have to lose? Like, I'll see if I can get you some clients, but I can't even guarantee that. And let's just go ahead. So I hired him, and he was amazing. He was there for years. And then he went off and started his own. And I was like,
awesome.
Good luck, good power too. And so he was a catalyst for one. And he started taking more clients even than me. I mean, he was really full. And so now we're using up the room day and night, you know.
So he was there in the day when you were at your day job.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is no bigger than this. This is about maybe 10 by 10 room, teeny. And so that was his max, right? And then he's full, I'm full, and I'm exhausted from working all day, and someone else we hired. Actually, 2 more people. And the room was minute by minute booked up. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. There's nowhere else to go. I looked around, and there's no
office space available.
Nope. And so I didn't think there was anything I could do. And then one day I'm like, I'll just look around. I've called kind of the real estate guy, and he said there's nothing. So I just said, well, I'm just gonna go. So I walked up to the 2 buildings up, and I said, hey, is there any even sublease space or anything? And she goes, well, we have a suite upstairs that's open. I'm like, a suite? Okay, can I look at it? She goes, sure. She walked me up there. She goes, here it is. Some people just left, and it's open. And I'm like, this is huge. You know, rooms, lots of rooms, a reception area. And I'm just like, how much is it? And she's like, it's $2,500 a month. I'm like, I do $10 an hour.
Yeah. That's
what I do. I don't.
It's a lot of clients.
I just said, sorry, thanks, and I left. And then I thought about it and talked to my wife, and I think what we realized was that's the going rate. It wasn't more than
it's
anywhere
the market
else.
rate, sure.
And you either play the game or you don't play the game. So I was like, oh my heck. That's double, you know, I can't make that payment. But I said, we either take the lease, move over there and try to go full speed, leave my day job, or we just keep doing what we're doing forever. So we just decided to do it.
Just took that
It was
leap,
terrifying.
So I want to dive into this a little bit, at least on the family side. So what role did your wife and any other family members play in helping you make this decision? And were they supportive, not supportive? Did you have to have this conversation, I'm sure, multiple times?
My wife was more than supportive, and she helped a ton. When we first started, she held the phone, took all the calls, was up front, helped me with all of the decisions. Basically, me and her were running this. So she was highly involved. She's still involved. And so, yeah, a lot of support from her.
Good. Yeah.
Help decide to do this, leave a job.
I think that's a big key, that, you know, some people are more risk adverse than others and may not be too comfortable with leaving the security of, you know, a day job that has all those benefits, right? You got your health insurance. That's a big thing, especially nowadays. And like, what do you do if you've got kids that are sick, that have to go to the hospital, and you've got your own business now, so you have some different kind of health insurance. So can you talk about that? Did you have those questions or fears, and how did you overcome those?
That was almost the number one. So we were thinking, if we leave, to make it work, we would have to have this many hours of therapy session a week, and not just to give our pay, but to equate for the pension they were having, and the benefits and the leave time and the health insurance and paid holidays, all the stuff we had, right? So calculating it was like a fortune you'd have to make to
probably
cover.
twice much or three
Right.
times as much as your salary for all
Yeah.
the benefits, right? Yeah.
And that's just doing it on paper. Reality was worse. So
How so? Just the
take health insurance. If with my job, it was a benefit. We paid a couple $100 a month or something, but it was mostly paid for. So we figured health insurance to get our own marketplace, would be maybe more, 300 or 400, right? So it's based on income. So if you are starting and you have a lot of expenses and low revenue, it's like free, which it was.
This is with the Affordable Care Act plan? Okay.
They're very cheap, $100 a month or something.
It's income based.
But as soon as your business starts working, it's thousands of dollars a month.
Sure.
For health insurance.
So you want your business to thrive, and then on the other hand, your expenses are going to go up, especially in the healthcare.
Right. So just if your business does what you're hoping it does, then to go out and buy insurance for a family. We have 5 kids. Is easy $1,500 or more if you want a better plan. So we didn't predict that.
But you got through it, obviously.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the money part. So you've got this lease that has a staggering number compared to the income that's coming in at the time. How did you overcome that or figure out a way to make that work?
Yeah. So at the very beginning, we had not much revenue. We were trying to market, but, not enough to pay employees or us. We didn't pay ourselves anything. And we just thought about that lease payment. Can we get the lease? Can we get the lease? And so we didn't have enough. So we got a loan, a business loan, and that wasn't really very big. So we had our house, so we took an equity loan out, actually. And that was our basically startup business loan. So we were paying the lease with the loan each month.
On your home equity loan.
Yep.
So
we didn't even make enough to pay it.
So you're pretty much all in at this point. It sounds
All
like
in.
Yeah. You've quit your day job at this point, and you've got a home equity loan out, and you're still paying your mortgage. You're still trying to figure out how to pay health care
It's scary.
and food and expenses and all that. So yeah, that I'm sure that had to be. How did you overcome some of those fears or challenges? Did you just work through it? Just do the Nike motto, just do it?
I think we knew it was coming, and we even talked at a meeting with our family. We're like, you guys, this is how it's going to be. We're not going to go on vacation this year or anything like we're not going to have any money. Don't ask. I tried to make it comforting. I drew this chart, and I said, we're here. It's going to go like this.
See this
then
big dip?
It's going to go up. And we think it could even go up here. So don't be scared. Be prepared. So
you set the expectation up front with your family. That's awesome. I like that plan. That's especially having the graph, right? Like we're here. This is gonna suck for a few months, maybe a year, or maybe even longer. Who knows?
Right.
And then it's gonna start coming up, and hopefully we'll be twice as much or more than we started. So
hoping, right?
Yeah, that's great. I like that visual. Okay, so let's go back to the business. So you've got the lease now with this home equity loan, and how many employees do you have at this point?
I think we had let's see, I think 5 therapists. We got a couple more, so we had 5 therapists because we put the position out and we hired, and we're like, we need help. I was doing as many sessions as I could and trying to run all this.
And the business side, yeah.
So we realized that it couldn't be just me. I couldn't just go do tons of sessions and work all day and make the lease or whatever.
Exhausted too.
It would have to be employees and contributing to the, amount of work. So I'm trying to remember what your question.
So yeah, no, I was asking how many employees there were.
Oh, yeah.
So did you discuss like a fee for service model or a salary model? How did you come to that decision and that type of thing?
So just talking with my therapist friend who was doing this, it made more sense to do a fee for service. So the therapists weren't paid on the hour; they were paid per therapy session. So they'd come in, they would do it, and leave pretty much. If they didn't have anything to do, they're not sitting around. And they were fine with that. And we couldn't offer benefits, so we paid a little more than another place that had benefits.
Sure.
So they were happy, and it was fee for service.
But I'm sure on the business side, that saved you money, right? With the not offering the benefits from a salary, but you could pay a little bit extra on the hourly side of things. So
benefits are like very expensive,
sure,
to offer, and so I mean it wasn't even an option, but it worked out.
So take me through those, first 6 months or a year once you moved into this place and you kind of had a legit clinic, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Take me through what that was like and some of the ups and downs.
Okay. So first of all, it was a suite. It had 2 rooms in it, and the rest was wide open. 1,200 square feet of nothingness.
Nothing.
As far as us, it was wasted
Right,
space.
yeah.
So we're like, we're going to use up the rooms. But eventually, I'm like, what can we do? And we asked the landlord, when we first signed up, we said, can we put walls in?
Yeah, sure.
And they
Make some more
said we
rooms.
could. But then when it was time, we're like, we have a little bit of funding. Can we put a wall? And they said, no, we don't want walls. We're like, what?
So you didn't get it in writing, and it was just a verbal?
I guess. I don't even know how it didn't work. But so I kind of went back and I talked to the person above them, and eventually we agreed that I could do temporary walls that could be removed later. So I found some company that makes them, and we ordered them. And they brought them out in a semi, and then now I'm a construction worker. So we put up these walls, made more rooms. They worked. We put therapy couches and chairs in them, and we had more space. So we kind of had to grow the building to what we needed. And then I figured out that if we don't have someone to answer the phones, a missed call is a missed client.
Sure, that's money down the drain, right?
Yeah. So we can either try to get the phone in between sessions and stuff and never get full, or we could hire a receptionist, which is money that, they don't produce any money.
Well, yeah, they can't. When they're taking a call, they can be producing money, I guess, in that sense. Yeah.
But they're not going to bring in revenue of any form.
Right.
The therapist
Other
will.
than that, yeah.
And so we just thought, let's see what happens if my theory is right. We'll hire someone, and even though we have to pay them, and it worked. So we hired someone. It wasn't full-time, but several hours a week. They would take the calls. We got a lot more clients because we didn't miss calls. And so that helped. So it was kind of nice because there was already a built-in reception area that came with the suite.
With the suite, nice.
So they sat there and did that. That helped everything move. Having more rooms helped. And then we would get to where we'd get full and we could hire another person and another person. Right now we have 13 therapists there. So we'd eventually get full. We'd hire one. They'd get full. Felt like we could add another one. And we would do that. I mean, this is a side note, but the key to all that was marketing, which we had to learn.
Okay, so let's dive there first. So I just want to ask one question. What do you think the percentage went up of your clientele once you made that investment in a receptionist? Just like a ballpark estimate, how many more? Was it like a 10%, 20%, 30% more clients?
It's probably like astronomical.
More than that, really?
Because if we would call when we had a chance, that's a minute here and a minute there. The phone got to be where it would ring every day and a lot of the day. So if we weren't there, we would have missed them all. People just go down the list if you don't answer.
Sure, yeah.
So
it's hard. It's hard to tell, but you could probably honestly say that that whatever money you paid for this receptionist probably for like the week salary was probably made up in maybe a day.
Oh yeah. It was totally worth it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Cool. And I think this hits on a topic where sometimes we're in this mindset where we're down here and we're looking at like a step up instead of like 10 steps up. And we say, okay, this is so much more money, the suite, the $2,500 for the suite and the extra, whatever, $100 a day for the receptionist. But really, those investments can bring us up to such a high level that sometimes we need to look at the real big picture, right?
So I always think of whatever money I put into the business is an investment.
Sure.
It's not like I'm spending or an expense. I'm kind of growing this machine. And so it's not painful to put that money there because I know it's going to lead somewhere.
But without that business mindset and making that transition is, I think, tough for like myself or somebody else that's starting a business saying, man, this is a lot of money. But if you don't have that investment and the mindset, then I think that's key, just to say, this is going to grow. It's just going to take a little bit more time than I might be expecting.
And kind of with that, I think it's better to not be in a race. To just get a giant loan and hire a ton of people and buy a bunch of supplies and like just put yourself in a bind real fast. At least that's what we did. We started. We got our therapy couches from garage sales, and
sure, it works.
Whatever we could. We didn't have a loan at first. We would just buy a thing or an item, and so we were never really in debt until we did the big switch. And I think if you grow it inch by inch, it's safer.
Yeah, I think we get stuck in this mindset where we see all these Silicon Valley startups that get all this venture capitalist, right? And they get all these millions of dollars, and
it's silly.
And then they're not profitable, right? They go several years and they're still not profitable, and so you've got that end of the spectrum on the technology end. But if you go back 100 years, right, this grassroots thing. This is how people started businesses, and that's why I really liked your story, because you'd gone back to kind of the roots of what I would call kind of logical, smart business startup, where you start small and then you grow it from there. So
start small, yeah.
Prove your concept small and then scale it. It sounds like that's what you did.
And I don't think you can learn all you need to know overnight. So we learned a lot along the way while it was smaller. So then as it got bigger, we knew how to handle that. Little lessons, I think if we tried to do overnight, you couldn't have got all those lessons, and it would have been a problem.
Yeah, and the repercussions would have been at a bigger scale too, right? So when you're learning and going through these mistakes at a smaller scale, it's just like, learning as a human being. When you're small and little and you're falling, it doesn't hurt as much as when you're an adult and falling down. And so I think it's the same concept here, where you get the kinks out early, and then later on you're not going to have those mistakes. So So I really like that. So let's go back to the marketing piece. What can you tell us about marketing? How'd you learn that, and how did it help your business grow?
It's hard to say anything else matters more. marketing, I think people, it's a yucky sounding word because they think of sales or I don't know what, but
the door-to-door salesman.
Or just uncomfortable. But all it is letting people know you're there and you have a product or a service. I mean, that's all you're doing is saying, letting people know.
I love that definition.
You're nearby and you have something. Yeah. So you have to do that. Everyone has to do that. So it's not a bad thing. And if it isn't working, then nothing's going to work. So as we were trying to grow it, there was times where we were pretty full, and then there's times where it would dip and wouldn't have any work, and we would get real nervous, and we have employees wanting work.
So it was cyclical.
Yeah, a little bit, and it was really scary. So in my mind, I had a switch, and it was the marketing switch, and I would say, we're going to turn the marketing switch on, and I'm going to be a marketing maniac, which I was. Anything you could do, I would do. I was in the city parades handing out flyers and candy. That's one way, right? We were putting up posters around, just anything. So we had a website, tried to get that to work. Then eventually we got Facebook. Insurance, we got an insurance panel, so then that's marketing.
Sure.
But I would just do free classes to the community.
Okay.
On parenting or something, and just so people could know we're there. And the switch was on, and we would do. I put logos in my car, on the windows, whatever. And I don't know if it was all very effective, but I didn't care. It's like the switch is on.
Yeah.
We're doing every form.
Just do it. Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And then when we got full and we were starting to turn people away, we would switch it off. So that's at least what we had to do at the beginning. Learn a lot about marketing.
So what were some of the resources that you went to learn about marketing?
Okay, so it was cool, and they probably have this everywhere. There was the Chamber of Commerce
for
the local, and they had meetings, and I'd go to all those, and they would network, but they would usually do like a training each month, and a lot of times it was something about marketing or social media marketing, and they'd have an expert come and teach us. So I'd go to all those. So that was a really good. In Utah here, there's this small business development center, and that was huge. You could go there, meet with someone, they could analyze what's going on and give you advice. Plus, they have all these classes, and you could go to those and learn.
Yeah, and they're free too.
Everything, it's all free.
Yeah, it's been a good resource for me just to figure out how to start a business and some of the steps through it. And I think what I like about it the most is the people that are there. A lot of them are volunteers, just small business owners themselves, or have retired, or have been successful in their own business.
But they have knowledge.
So this goes back to the whole teacher thing, being in the field. Like, you've got these teachers that have been there and that can really give you that real world advice.
Yeah, I'd go to the consult and just pad and paper everything they said. I went home and did all of it, and it was really helpful.
Cool.
I figured they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, right. Yep. Okay, so you got the marketing down now, and at what point were you ever skeptical in your decision that first 6 or 9 months, a year? Like, what the heck am I doing? What did I get into? Like, take us through some of those fears and how you overcame them.
It was definitely terrifying because there's no money, there's no paycheck. So
it's all
for
going
a while,
back. It's all going back in the business
just to keep
the expenses,
payroll. Yeah. So it was really scary.
Sorry to interrupt. So you're using your home equity loan to pay the payroll.
Well, there was some money, right? There was some, but it just went out.
Just not enough.
Yeah. So, yeah. it was really scary, and I always figured it would take some time, so I wasn't too worried that it would never work. But a lot of days I would just say, when is it gonna happen?
Mm-hmm. I'm putting in the work here. Like, I'm trying to get over this hill. Where is the light at the end of this tunnel?
And I'll give my wife props. She really never said that we've tried long enough, this is stupid. She just hung in there. So that was cool. So a lot of times, sometimes I would get to where at some point you have to cut your losses, right? If we're doing this for a year and a half to however long it was going, and it's not even equal to what you had before, it's like, this has to happen, something has to change, or just honestly, we need to not do this.
We're done, yeah.
So I thought that a few times. And it was a worry.
So how long did it take before you finally got to the point where you're like, okay, this is working, we can go forward, I can breathe a breath of fresh air, that I'll be able to support my family on this, and we're not going to be homeless or without health care and all that stuff? Where was there a turning point that you can remember?
It's hard to remember dates and times, but it was probably around a year. I mean, it's not that we didn't have food. Like, we were using on the loan. We were alive. But around a year was probably where one day we didn't have to take any money from the bank. We could just pay everything with what was coming in.
Your income met your expenses for the month or whatever time period.
I was like, wow, that's different. So around a year maybe, but that was really fun, just to break even.
Sure, that's a
payroll,
big win.
We have enough, and now it's payroll. Oh, we'll just go pay payroll. And I was like, this is nice. I mean, it wasn't like enough that your goal, but it was.
It's still a big milestone in owning a business, right?
It was huge.
You've made all this investment and time and money and energy and not just yours, but the employees that you have too. Yeah. So you've got a lot of stress that way too. To see that it's viable and that the income meets the expenses is it's a big achievement.
Viable. Yeah. Now that you mentioned employees, I remember a little frustration where I would write payroll and pay everyone and just think, everyone else is getting paid and I'm not.
Yeah.
Everyone else gets, on payday, man, they get the penny amount of what they earned without fail. I never was behind on payroll. I didn't care if I had to suffer. And I remember just thinking, man, they get paid on that Friday, but I don't.
A year ago, I was getting a paycheck like this, and now it's like 25% of what it used to be.
So that was like hard to do.
Yeah, I can imagine that's tough. So you get to this 1 year point where it's breaking even, and what happens next?
We just kept. It was always up and down. And so we just kept fine-tuning marketing, and we tried everything, AdWords, all the stuff you try. And eventually, I don't know how we met. Oh, playing basketball. I play basketball Tuesday, Thursday mornings. And another guy asked what I did or something, and he said he does marketing. I'm like, we could use some of that.
We need you, yeah.
And he said, well, let's meet. And he was the key. So ever since he came in, he goes, I just do a flat rate a month, and I'm just going to be your marketing consultant and do this. And I'm going to get you your goals and whatever. So he did. He had us doing stuff we never would have thought of. and helping us get reviews on Google. We didn't really do that before. And he's like, you got to have them. You got to do this and you got to do this. And he made us videos for our website of each therapist talking about themselves. And just a lot of stuff. SEO, which we weren't doing. So the marketing guy got our marketing into gear.
And that's when you saw the business really take off?
It made a big difference. Yep. And then we were just always full. We had a waiting list and we were turning people away.
Awesome. I like it. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I really like in that story. I guess I'd start with, when we put our foot forward and work on a goal and move towards that goal, and even when we're suffering or think that it might not be the right path, that if we stick with that and share that goal or experience with other people, that there's people around us that help us, right? And I think that's one thing that I've learned is just to be open to the help that's around you instead of being this lone ranger. I'm going to do everything myself. There's people out there that have these skills in marketing that are a lot better than you. And they're willing to help too. That's the thing. Like they're willing to help you. And so I think that was key, just making that connection. Yeah. And there was another point that I can't remember now, but
well, I like what you said about use your support system,
Yeah.
Either people, professionally, or just like friends, family, relatives. I had, my wife, my family supported us. I had a good friend who has been in business his whole life. His dad had business and and he had tons of advice. He really encouraged me on the day, this will make me cry, on the day I left my business, he came and he brought balloons and all this stuff, him and his wife, and he's like, this is a great day. You're quitting your job. Congratulations.
It's a turning point in your life, right? And he recognized it because he'd been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has, I could call him, I don't know what to do about this. He'd help me. So he was a huge support the whole way through.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, thanks for sharing that because, we can't do this alone in anything in life, really. And this can lead right into the counseling part of this discussion and how important it is to share our feelings and our goals with other people and how that can really magnify those goals and keep us on the right track. I remember now what I was going to say. So you were talking about running into somebody in basketball that had marketing skills. I just ran into somebody today and I told him I might be moving somewhere. And he's like, oh, I've got a contact there. You can talk to him about this. And he's got like 2 businesses and nice. What are the odds? Like, I just, and then, and the same guy I was talking about this podcast to, and he's like, oh yeah, I got this contact that does podcast marketing and all this stuff. And so it's just, if you don't ask, then you'll never know. But
right.
like we talked about, when you ask, those doors will open and things just happen. So
that's true. Networking and just, not being too proud.
Yeah, right. Saying you're keeping your humbleness and like, man, I really suck at marketing. I could use some help.
Right. No, that's true.
So let's lead into unless we're at the 1 year part and your marketing starts going up, and now how long did it take before you were making about the same as you were in your 9-to-5 job?
It's hard to say. I can't do time very good. I don't know. Probably another year.
So maybe at the 2 year point.
Like smooth.
Right. Constant.
And then that could be different for everyone.
Sure.
It's
I'm
not
sure.
Gonna always be 2 years, but yeah. And I mean, this is a lot about money. It's numbers, right? it's hard to say what was the same, because once you're, if you want to make it equal, you got to pay yourself enough. And then you got to have, at least for me, insurance paid for. And some form of retirement, I think, is fair to give yourself.
Sure. And maybe some days off in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Which you probably hadn't had in 2 years or however long.
Not a lot, right? Yeah, so you should give yourself all the things that someone who's employed gets, and then say, it's enough. So
cool. I like it. So how long did it take before you got your first vacation?
So we didn't that first year. The second year, the funny thing is as it goes, we had a lot of expenses, right? And we had basically small revenue. So we got a giant tax return. It was like a net loss and everything.
Sure.
So we had this tax return. So we're like, we've been doing this in scrimpting. Let's go on a cruise. We've never been on a cruise. So that was our first thing.
Nice.
We decided to do.
You've got to invest in yourself, right? Especially when you've gone through all that work and blood and tears, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to transition to the counseling part now. So we've talked about having a good support system, and I've used counseling, and it's really helped me in my life, and I've gotten to a point now where I kind of use it as a maintenance, as a preventative maintenance, and I see that as a common theme in both mental and physical health and nutrition as well. So once you kind of get to a certain point, this preventative stuff is more helpful. But let's talk about how do you think the stigma has changed over the years? Because, when I was maybe 20 years ago, that mental health was kind of seen as, that's only for people that have, schizophrenia or, bipolar or are severely depressed where they're having suicidal thoughts. Or how do you think that that's changed, and what's influenced that change?
It's definitely changed for the better. So yeah, it used to be some people that were really crazy or they're really off would do. And if you were in treatment or counseling, stay away from that person, almost. And it's not like that at all anymore, and it's slowly moved, but it's very low stigma, I think. I think more people talk about it, more people use it. It's almost, in Hollywood, it's almost like shown as cool, I
went to counseling or rehab. Yeah.
My therapist told me this, and no one feels bad about that. So yeah, it's better, way better. It's probably not perfect still, but most people that come will tell their friends what they learned, or they will it's just not as scary.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that once you experience it, whatever fears or premonitions you had beforehand are kind of dissipated, right? It's like, this is just like this right here. We're just talking to each other, and it's just a chance to have somebody, a third party, listen to your concerns and give you advice and help you on your path in life, and that's kind of what I found.
So I've gone to counseling and go kind of maintenance. I think it's fun. At least that's how it has been for me. I think of it as like there's some issue, something's not going right. I'm gonna go talk to someone, and they're gonna be on my team and help me figure this problem out. And it's great.
Yeah, it's like a coach, right? It's like having a life coach almost instead of a sports coach.
Kind of fun. At least I see it as an enjoyable thing to go do.
Yeah, it took me several years to finally go to a counselor, and I wish I would have gone earlier than that. But I'm glad I did eventually go, and I'm still going on the maintenance side. It really helps. So what advice would you have for someone that's on the fence about going to counseling, or is thinking about it but is not sure, maybe doesn't have the money? What can you go through some of those topics?
So those are all different.
Yeah, sorry, that was
things.
like 3 different questions.
I mean, if you're thinking about it, but you're nervous and you have doubts, right? I would say, how can you know until you try something? At least try it. You can always say, this didn't work, or it wasn't for me, or I didn't click. I don't want to keep going. But at least go check it out. See what it is.
Have an open mind, yeah.
And really, it's wonderful. Counselors are trained in how to help people think, in a healthy way, and how to do relationships, and how to work through trauma or things that have happened. So you're going to go, and they're going to be able to help you. Maybe more than you realize, I guess.
Yeah, and you brought up 3 things there that basically define humanity, I think, and that's, our thought process sometimes gets out of line, or we get these thoughts that are so off that need to be brought back centered and into reality. And then you brought up relationships, which are obviously that's a key thing for humans, is just having good, healthy relationships. And I forgot the third thing. What was the third thing?
Said, like work through traumas.
Trauma, that was
like
it, yeah.
That might have happened.
So trauma, and I think probably most of us have gone through some kind of trauma in our life. Is that what you found?
I think it's a definite yes. You might not term it like that.
Sure. And maybe you don't even realize that it
Right.
happened in your childhood, and you don't even realize it's there, but
Right.
it's affecting something in your adult life.
Yeah. Yep. So it is humanity, and it's also just kind of what we do as counselors. We help people, and those are the main themes, is inside of our mind and between people, and the traumas inside your mind too. But we see it's what comes to us, so it's what we do.
Yeah.
We're trained and we learn how to work with those things. Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit about the methods that you use, and some of the techniques or the differences between different counselors, or even different training regimes within your field.
Right. So there's a lot of different models, theories, ways of intervening in different camps. So you have marriage and family therapists, and they look at people through the lens of systems. So they look at the whole family as a system, and if someone's acting out or some coming in for some problem behavior, they don't see them as needing to be fixed. They see them as their behavior has a function with the whole family, and so they'll look at it that way, and work with everyone, bring everyone in, and do that. So that's one model. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and so we're trained in family, but also individual in different ways of intervening. And so there's lots of theories, lots of models. Really common is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and that's working with how people think and their beliefs and how they view the world, and making sure they're not unhealthy ways, and helping them to be more healthy, essentially. There's lots of other models. One that I use is called EMDR, and that stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's just another way. It's mainly for helping people work through negative beliefs they have about themselves and past traumas that might still be affecting them. So
And how does that work in a nutshell, in the layman's terms?
It is interesting. So like the name says, you use eye movements with people to, as you move their eyes back and forth, they follow your hand, kind of like this. And that stimulates both sides of their brain. So it's bilateral brain stimulation. And as they're doing that, you're bringing up something upsetting or trauma or something that's happened or a negative belief, and you're working through it. And it just seems like it helps their brain process it better and quicker and change from the negative to a positive. And kind of almost in their body, it clears the negative charge that it holds. So that's in a nutshell.
So it sounds like this is a scientifically proven way to tap into some of our trauma or bad memories and to clear those out through talk and through this eye movement thing.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Science, folks. Science right here.
Very scientific.
I like it. You mentioned one thing that I wanted to bring up, so I wrote it down, and that was looking at this through a system. So the family counselors looking at one instead of pinpointing it on this child that's screaming or whatever's going on, that you're in this family relationship and there's a lot of interaction that's going on, and I love this system view, so I wanted to dive into that a little bit, because this is a common theme that's coming up on our podcast when we're interviewing people and in every aspect, really. So we've talked about food and nutrition being part of the system, from what the cows are eating to what we're eating in the beef, and how there's this whole ecosystem. Hormones, yeah. So you can get down in the weeds about everything's connected is what it comes down to.
Okay.
And how, with nutrition, like we talked about, you got what the cow eats affects the nutrition of what our hamburger is, and what the pesticides are being put into the ground for our produce and fruits and vegetables and things, and so, and how that affects the grass, and the next year it's not as good. So there's all these, there's systems of systems,
True.
and how doctors are focusing now on the body as a system, instead of just, oh, well, you've got fatty liver and we'll take care of that and we'll give you this pill or whatever it is. And I don't think you can do that for fatty liver, but I'm not a doctor. But yeah, it proves the point that they're looking at this as a system, that, okay, well, maybe because you're having these depressive thoughts because of the food that you're eating. And so they're taking a look at all these different things, and I think there's a lot of research.
Yeah.
This is a common theme that we keep seeing on these podcasts, is looking at things as a system instead of, having that mono view of something. So I really like that when you brought that up. Systems in general. Do you see that? I guess first, are you in the family counseling?
So I'm a licensed clinical social worker, but we're trained and we totally do family therapy and couples counseling. And you go on, once you graduate, you get specialized in more trainings and these. So I have a lot with family and couple. So yeah, we use it. Here's an example. With this family idea, the quote is, all behavior has meaning and purpose for the individual. So you could see it as odd behavior or problem, but there's going to be a reason it's there. There's a purpose and a meaning, and it has to do with stuff going around outside too. You could have a problem teen, right? Child. And there's always fighting, and everyone's trying to get them changed and help and all this. And let's say they get help and they stop their problem behavior, months later, the parents divorce. That's because, in theory, the parents have an issue and they're not working it out. And they've created a triangle. So there's a child, mom, dad, and they take their energy and they focus it over on the child, the problem child, and then they don't fight about their issues. They also don't deal with them, and they don't get divorced. So they're both in agreement on the issue.
So they're ignoring their own problems by distracting themselves on focusing on something else.
Right. And so really they need to head off. And it doesn't have to end in divorce, but they need to deal with what's the real core and figure that out.
Yeah, I like that example, and it really makes me remember how big a responsibility I have as a parent. It's like these relationships that I have with my wife and with my other kids are affecting my kids and others. Like, oh, I got to be careful now. It's a system. It goes back to the systems.
There's no perfect parents, and you don't have to be, but
yeah, just having that mindset that, oh man, maybe something that I'm doing to my kid has to do with my relationship with somebody else, right?
Good.
So I like that. So I want to ask, what are some of the common themes that you think that you see with people coming to you for help, and maybe some success stories that you've heard, just to kind of give our listeners and viewers maybe someone that's on the fence, just some insight into what could be
with like the therapy.
With therapy, yeah, and how therapy could help.
Right. I think most common is depression and anxiety of some form. Is the most. It just is. There's other issues, personality issues, or like the marriage counseling. There's other things, but anxiety and depression is big. Top two.
Has it always been that way since you started?
So yeah.
Okay.
It's just how it is. And so don't know the reason necessarily.
Sure.
It's just common. So we work with that a lot. All the counselors know how to work with that, even if they specialize in other things. Because it's just super common.
And how can cognitive behavior therapy or any other type of therapy help with those things?
Right. So the cognitive behavior is going to work with making sure. So here's a common thing. When something negative happens to someone, they have different ways of viewing it. Unhealthy ways would be, this is going to last forever, and this is going to ruin everything in my life, and it's all my fault. And so we all fall into that sometimes, right? And it's
like the worst case scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We think it's the worst. And so we would say, let's see, examples of things that have happened, and did it really work that way? We help people to think this is temporary. Most of these things are temporary, and they have an end. And it's healthier to think that way. And it might be a problem, but there's a lot of other things that are still going well. So don't forget about those. And then instead of saying it's all your fault, it's better to say, this is common. It happens to a lot of people. It's part of life. I didn't really try to make it go this way. That's healthier. So there's an example of how we would help people learn to think in a more healthy way.
Yeah, and when we're having those thoughts of the worst case scenario, it's sometimes hard to get back on the track of the normal thinking, and I think that's what counseling has helped me a lot with, is just having that third person point of view, right? When we're in the middle of something, when we're in the trenches and going through something, we have this narrow blinders on, right?
Tunnel.
Yeah, the tunnel vision, like the horses with their blinders. But having a therapist or a counselor to talk to kind of opens your eyes to what's really happening.
Right. Third person, kind of outside, looking at it, can have a different. When you're stuck, left with yourself and your own thoughts, just cycling, they're probably not gonna come to solutions. So it's not like you have to have another person, but if you're just left with your thoughts to yourself and they're negative, they're just probably gonna spiral. So whether it's a counselor or a friend or someone, it's good to bounce them out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't try to do this by yourself, right? There's always goes back to that support system, and there's people out there that are willing to help. And I think when we ask, that people are willing to give that. Okay, so we've talked about the business side and all the fears and struggles there, and you've come out on top. Hopefully you feel like you're at a good place right now. Is that correct?
It's better.
Okay, good.
You can breathe.
Yeah. And where do you see your business going from here?
It's hard to say because I never really planned fully like that it would do what it's doing. It kind of keeps morphing, so maybe it will. I don't even know. But I kind of like where it's at, where we have 2 suites and more rooms, and it's full. It seems like it's enough work that as much as I can handle, and plus I'm still seeing clients a certain amount a week, that if we tried to get another building or do something else, I think I would just be running around. Overwhelmed.
You'd have to hire somebody, it sounds like, to do the business side.
Right. So, I'd like it.
You like it where it's at right now? You don't have any expansion plans?
No.
Nothing at the moment? Okay. I mean, that's fine. I was curious.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the business side, and now we've talked a little bit about the counseling and how that can help people. And I know it's helped me. I have friends that have gone to counseling and have, gone back and recommended it. And like you said, having that third person point of view. So I'd like to end on 2 questions. So number 1, if you could summarize to someone that's trying to start a business or has thought about starting a business, what's a good piece of advice you could give them in 30 seconds?
Okay. I would buy the book, The E-Myth.
E-Myth, okay.
First of all, which stands for the entrepreneurial myth. And it's the best book if you're going to go try to start a business. It's great. It basically talks about how, you have a skill, and so you figure, why do I have to work for someone else? I'll just go do my skill and get all the money or something. And it says, it's fine. Go ahead and go start your business, but you got to think. Just because you have the skill doesn't mean you know how to run a business.
Sure.
Or how to market, like all the stuff I've talked about. So you got to think about that and plan for that. There's a lot about what the book says, but it has really cool stories and examples.
And you found that to be helpful when you were starting your business?
Yep, it was great. It's a very good one. So there's one. I don't know. I would say timing is kind of a big deal. I think it has to be the right timing.
In your life, you mean? Or in the market?
In your
both,
life.
Probably both. But
yeah. But just that you're know enough, expert enough at something first.
Sure, right.
And
not just fresh out of college.
Have your ducks in a row and stuff to make it work. I think if you just say, I have an idea, I'm gonna go do it really quick, it might not go. I don't think my business would have worked 5 years before. So.
Yeah, I really like that point because I've found that to be true in a lot of aspects of my life, right? With this weight loss I had last year, like just you have to have a certain mindset that you're going to commit to something. And there's certain points in our lives where we do have that mindset and when we don't, right? So we have some other things going on. So
we're ready to actually do it.
Right. So I really like that.
Like the weight loss, yep.
Okay, and then the other question that I want to ask is, I've already touched on this before, but if somebody is going through some of these common things like depression, anxiety, or other things where they feel like they need help, what advice do you have for them?
I would say if you're noticing some of that symptoms and stuff, that it's really important to have a good fit if you're going to go look for a counselor. And I would say, for one, go to this website. It's called psychologytoday.com. And what I like about it is you put in your zip code and it's going to pop up all these counselors. And it's going to be a bio and it's going to tell you about them and what they specialize in. And if they take insurance or yours or whatever, you can actually search by insurance. It's the best place to find a counselor.
It's a big database of counselors in your area.
Yep.
Okay.
And you can learn about them before you even pick up the phone and make sure it's more what you're looking for, because they're all very different.
Sure.
And they have a picture and everything. So.
Yeah, and that's what your marketing guy did for you, right?
Yep.
Put your pictures and bios on your websites, and
so that's just a good way to like find one. I would say it's worth it, even if it costs money, and you find that if you give it a try. I was at first, this is a thing for businesses. At first, when I started, it was hard for me to take people's money. It felt weird. You don't have to do that as an employee. And so I'm like, okay, the session's up. You can write me a check or run your card. And how much do I charge? And it was kind of yucky. And you know how I got over it? I found pretty much one of the most expensive therapists I could back east over the phone, and I paid him, I think it was over $200. It was like, it might have been $300, and they weren't even hours. They were 45-minute session. So I called him. I said, I want to meet. He said, okay. He's like, we need the money first, even. And then I met with him for 45 minutes so I could cure myself of how
am I doing a good enough job for this money? Is that what it comes to?
Well, just that I could paying that much for that many minutes. It's just what it feels like from the client side.
Sure.
So I wouldn't feel so bad about asking for 80.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it was great. He helped me a lot, actually, in the one visit. So you might be surprised how much worth it is, even if it seems like a lot of money.
Yeah, and I was, I think one of the reasons I didn't go to counseling, earlier than I did was I just assumed that my insurance didn't cover it.
Oh.
And so, I didn't even look into it. So I think that would be some advice that I'd give listeners that are thinking about it, is just look through your insurance, give them a call and say, I'm thinking about going to this counselor. Like, do you cover it? How much do you cover it? How much is my copay going to be? So you have a better idea.
Yeah, almost all insurances have a mental health benefit. And it's the same as a doctor. So if you have a $20 copay, then the therapy is going to be $20.
Yep.
So yeah, insurance, we take most all insurances, and that's a benefit for people. It makes it easier.
Yeah, and you talked about these classes, so go into that a little bit. So if somebody really doesn't have the money or doesn't want to spend the money, you said you offered these free classes, or at least you did when you started.
And we do. So that even if a lot of places offer different classes, and even if they're not free, they're always a lot cheaper. So group therapy is in a less expensive way. We have like a postpartum depression support group, every other Thursday, and it's just free.
Nice.
One of our therapists
Can't beat that, guys. It's free.
Yeah, so there's that, and we do a free parenting night once a month. It's live. It's on Facebook. You can just chime in. But we also have some paid ones. We have a teen group. The next one's coming up in April, and it's like $120, and it's 8 weeks long. They come every week for an hour. it's 14 through 17 is the age for that one, and they're learning social skills and coping skills and emotional regulation, just a lot of good stuff. That's the type of groups that are out there.
I like it. Yeah. I like it. I just remember there's one more question that we didn't get to, but I wanted to bring it up a little bit. So Adrian and I have been talking about this, that these companies are going to kind of having fitness centers on site and very nutritious cafeterias, and they're taking care of people's physical health well, but it seems like there's a lack of the mental health capacity. And have you seen the industry kind of moving towards that, where maybe some of these big corporations would have a therapist on site where their employees could get this maintenance or baggage cleanup or thought process? Have you heard anything about that? Or
I think it would be great. I haven't seen it a lot where there's like a therapist they could just set up an appointment and go. But I think it's moving that way because most companies have EAPs. It's called Employee Assistance Program. So they're basically saying you can call this number and go do a certain amount of counseling sessions, like 6 or something, for free. It's not part of your insurance.
That's actually how I got started. When I finally got a corporate job that had that EAP, then I knew that I had it covered. So
yeah, so you don't have to pay anything for the EAP. And then there's also you've probably heard of your boss telling you to take a mental health day if you need.
Yeah, that's
a phrase now, that it's like welcomed, and like, go ahead, take a day off just because you need a break or want to go do something rejuvenating.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that we've reached that point where mental health is as important as physical health. So.
Yeah.
Great. I want to see that. So where can people find you or reach out to you?
So EagleMountainCounseling.org, the website. On Facebook, just search Eagle Mountain Counseling. Instagram, those are the main ways.
And you offer remote counseling as well, right?
Yeah, so we have telehealth, and most insurances now cover that too.
Great.
So just log into this website, your therapist is going to log in, and there you go.
So even when you're on vacation or traveling for work or whatever.
Or if you just don't want to come in out of your home. We often, if someone calls in and says they're sick or not feeling good or something, we say, if you want their telehealth, and a lot of times they're healthy enough that day that they can, sit in front of a laptop or just your phone.
Okay.
So sometimes people end up doing that on the spur of the moment.
Man, technology's great that we can do that. Isn't it? Great.
That's good.
Any other last words you want to leave with our listeners?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. So I was looking forward to talking about the business side and overcoming some of your fears and how you got through them that are pretty common, I think, and then the mental health side as well. So this is 2 topics that I'm really interested in, is entrepreneurship and health in general. So it's been great having you. Listeners or viewers out there, if you're going through any PTSD, depression, anxiety, any other mental health concerns, please go onto that website that he mentioned, Psychology Today. Was that it? Psychology Today.
Yep.
Find a counselor in your area and like you said, most health insurances cover mental health just like physical health, which is something I didn't know, 10 years ago before I started doing counseling. So
Yeah. Thank you.
It's been great talking with you, Darren.
You
And until next time, viewers.
People with wisdom and extraordinary experiences to learn from. Join me on a journey to discover them, speak with them, and learn from them. I'm Adrian Sinclair, host of A Podcast with Interesting People at apodcast.com.